Good evening and welcome to UK Crime Book Club. This evening I'm delighted to be joined by Gareth, who in this instance is writing as G B Rubin. You may also know him as Gareth Rubin, who has written books like The Turn Class and The Waterfall. Thank you for joining us, Gareth. Delighted to have you on.
Already, here we are.
Yeah, I know. Would you like to introduce Murder at Christmas? Because you obviously know it better than anybody.
I suppose I do. Apart from possibly my proofreaders who read it more times than I have. Murder at Christmas, You Solve the Crime, is it's rather like the old Choose Your Own Adventure books. So it's a murder mystery in which you are the hero, you are the protagonist, you're the one who makes the choices and directs the storyline. So you remember the old Choose Your Own Adventures where you'd have to turn to page 89 if you want to investigate the case, page 112 if you want to chase after the mysterious stranger. It's well like that. So it's a lot of fun. It's really aimed at, I guess it's really aimed at people who enjoy some classic murder mysteries, you know, the Poirots and the Miss Marples, and always quite fancied, you know, being the sleuth, being the detective themselves. Well, this is finally your chance to do that.
Yeah, and as I did say to you before we came on, is that I wasn't as good as I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to crack it, really.
No,
you know,
you've died 4 times already, I'm sure.
Yeah, I thought Miss Marple was me, but obviously not in this case. You were cleverer than I was in that case.
Yeah, Jane Marple. She always seems to survive, even though a few people try to bump her off here and there. You think, exactly. You know, frail old lady. You think she'd be quite easy to do in, wouldn't you? But no, keeps fighting back.
No, she's tough. She's tough as old boots. And so what sort of inspired you to write the sort of solve your own crime novel? And what were the sort of challenges of doing that?
Well, the main reason is that, like most people, I grew up with murder mysteries, watching Sherlock Holmes or Poirot on TV, and then graduating to actually reading the stories myself. And I just always wanted to be part of the adventure. I always wanted to be, you know, at the center of the action. I want to be the one pointing the finger or drawing the gun or chasing through the moonlit streets of London in Victorian England, and never got the chance because, you know, living in the 21st century England.
Exactly, yeah.
And so here we are. I just thought, why don't I write this book? Give myself a chance to kind of explore and have fun with all these wacky and exaggerated characters, but also give readers a chance to do so, because, you know, so many people want to be part of that landscape, want to be part of that storyline, want to make decisions, want to see if they are as clever as Holmes. And so this is, you know, the best way of going about it.
Because I guess the sort of Holmes is, you know, he's so clever. He's so, and then maybe that's why I wasn't very good at it, because I don't have the Sherlock Holmes mind.
Yeah, well, that's the big difference really between Conan Doyle and Agatha Christie. Holmes is so cerebral. He's more cerebral in fact than Poirot or Miss Marple or any of Christie's other characters, detectives, who we always forget about, even though some of them are perfectly decent murder mysteries. The thing is that, you know, Agatha Christie wasn't as good a writer of plots of mysteries as Conan Doyle. Quite simply, she was more fun, possibly more fun with characters, possibly more fun with the whole scene and the scenery.
Yeah.
And she pumped out a lot more books, frankly, more stories than Conan Doyle. But Holmes is cleverer than, you know, all of Agatha Christie's detectives put together, really. But people always also forget that Holmes was a lot of the stories are quite action laden. And Sherlock Holmes, you know, during his time off, quite enjoyed going down the docks and starting a boxing match with some dockers. He's a big fan of fights, big fan of violence. Sherlock Holmes, people can forget about that bit, and Dr. Watson as well. That people forget that Watson's supposed to be an action man. He plays rugby. He's fought in a war. He's got a war wound. He's supposed to be a bit of a ladies' man as well, which people also can forget. We always have this image of him, really from films, of being this sort of bumbling dimwit.
But I was going to say bumbling, sort of quite gentle, and well, I mean, I suppose in the
more modern, how he's written. he's written to be just a bit more of an action man. He's the one who kind of takes the lead whenever there's going to be a bit of rough and tumble. So Holmes sends him in with his service revolver in hand.
I was going to say he's been in his service, hasn't he, as well? But I think, yeah. So I mean, you wouldn't imagine. Well, Hastings has he's army, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I imagine
RAF, yeah.
Yeah, but I imagine he's more officer material than sort of get his hands dirty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're both officers, of course. Hastings was captain, then wing commander, as I remember. And Watson, I think was he a major? I think he was a major.
Yeah.
But obviously, Army Medical Corps is slightly different. But yeah, they're both supposed to be. Well, I mean, Hastings is really quite modelled on Watson. That he is not quite as clever, but very positive. He's quite upbeat. He's got an eye for ladies as well.
Definitely.
Really reminds him. He's supposed to be the kind of fun one. But what I find really interesting is in the later set Christie stories, she drops Hastings and replaces him with George, Poirot's valet.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. Maybe she just thought that sort of the comedy value of Captain Hastings had been sort of all wrung out of the character. But also it means she doesn't have to keep going on with the story device of Poirot constantly explaining everything to his companion, which is useful, but gets a bit samey after a while.
Well, he gets sent off to the Argentine, doesn't he? So, but he does pop up. I mean, he does pop up occasionally as well. Which
he returns at the end for Curtain, which is a very interesting Christie story. Which is the last. This is a story in which Poirot dies, but which Christie wrote, I think, 20 years or something before. Was locked away in her publisher's vault.
Until she died, or was it published before she died in the end? Because I thought it was if she died it would be published. But
that's a good question. I have a feeling you're right. I think that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was so obviously for people who haven't read the book, you said you go through, and so there's two stories, isn't there, with it? So you start off.
Your very first decision is which of the two mysteries to investigate. So you are Kinn Tenor, who's a police pathologist in essence, and Kinn is presented with two different mysteries to solve, and you as Kinn have to decide which one you're going to go for. Is it going to be a case where your friend Algy lives in this country house and he's got this slightly weird family and they're getting poison pen letters? It's all set at Christmas, so you can go down and have a Christmas party or a Christmas country house party with Algy while the snow is falling, and you've got to work out who's sending these poison pen letters, and then there's the bloody murder, which is inevitable in any mystery, really, and a strange family ritual. It's all very gothic. It's all very strange. Alternatively, you also asked to go and investigate a case where a friend of a friend is being strangely, mysteriously followed by a figure who she kind of catches sight of here and there. And if you investigate that mystery, you're stuck on a snowbound train between London and New York, while this slightly wacky bunch of characters stage their own magic show, and your friend Melissa is what I believe is called as the box jumper, who's the magician's assistant. She gets into the disappearing box and she never gets out again. So you've got two mysteries in one. Even in that story, you've got the mystery of how the disappearing box works, which I actually reveal in the story. It's really interesting. It's simpler than you think, but very effective. And then you've got to work out how the murder was done and why.
Because I think the Christmas you touched on there, like the Christmas sort of, it reminded me a bit of the Hercule Poirot's Christmas, when he goes down, but also that whole like dysfunctional family thing is like classic, isn't it, for golden age crime? You've got, you end up in this house and there's all these people and they're all a bit odd and they've all got like hidden agendas, and this one's got a bit of a creepy sort of aspect to it as well.
There is a bit of creep there.
Yeah, which I really enjoyed. Did you sort of that sort of setting a book at Christmas that's crime? I mean, there are, was that something that when you decided to write this book, was Christmas definitely the focal point of that? Did you think, right, it's got to be set at Christmas?
I don't know what it is about Christmas, but we just love a bloody murder, don't we? Maybe it's because we're shut indoors, just friends or family, or just on our own, and it's that you feel the walls closing in, and you can't get away from people, can't get away from these petty jealousies or the envies or desire to get your hands on your grandmother's bank account before or after she's dead. Or maybe it's because the snow's falling and it all looks so gentle and peaceful outside. That the contrast with a gruesome killing just just becomes all the more delicious. But we do enjoy a good murder mystery at Christmas, whether we're reading it or watching it on TV. It's the perfect time of year for it.
I think as well is that you said about that sort of snowed in scenario as well makes a sort of perfect sort of locked room, doesn't it? You're stranded. I mean, the book's set in the 50s as well, so it's not present day, so you haven't got the mobile phones and that sort of complication.
No, Christmas 1932 to be precise.
Sorry, why did I say 50s? Is it both? I don't know where I got that from.
It's fine, but no, it's a classic interwar period. Where you have the beautiful cars and the beautiful dresses and dinner jackets, and everyone's dressing for dinner.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. When you set novels in the past, and basically all my novels are set in the past, you don't have the complication of mobile phone and CCTV and debit cards which track you around the globe. I don't know how anybody can write a murder mystery set nowadays. I mean, we're so tracked. Everything's so well ordered and so well understood. That there are no real mysteries anymore. That's what I feel.
I think the thing is as well is that you don't think necessarily that you are tracked until you start to look at it and think, well, yeah, I am, because if I was to go missing tomorrow, the first thing they're going to look at is my phone records, where I went yesterday, from my bank card. That's one of the first things they say, isn't it? Is their phone hasn't been used or their bank card hasn't been used.
Yeah. I think unless you go missing from a remote campsite or something, people are always going to spot you through CCTV or shop records or anything.
Yeah.
I guess people do write murder mystery set nowadays, but I think they must kind of get around all these things in slightly roundabout sort of ways. It's always people's mobile phone batteries has died, or there's been a blackout in the CCTV.
Well, I was going to say that a storm is quite a good one. Like a storm where everything's down, phone, or an isolated island somewhere where where you can't. There's no phone signal. You've got to stand on top of a rock to get a phone signal or something.
Yeah, these isolated islands of the Scottish coast that must have extraordinary murder rates.
Yeah,
must have an attrition rate of like 80%, really.
Yeah. So Dr. Kinn Tenor, how did he come about? Because he's quite an interesting. Well, you're quite as the protagonist and as the person. But how did he come about to be the sort of the person that you would become, or we would become?
Kinn is an interesting character. I think that because with from an upper class background, from also at medical school, and then deciding what to do with his or her life. I think that I created a character who feels a little bit like an outsider, but is kind of respected by peers, respected by the public, and but not respected by the police, because Kinn is always interfering in the police investigations, and getting the all the praise and the popularity from when the police can't really do their job. In the same way that the Poirot.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very reminiscent, isn't it, of the other? Yeah,
exactly. But with Poirot's very quite conceited, quite arrogant, a little bit pompous, but kind of in a sort of charming sort of way. But that's not a sin that Kinn has. Kinn is much more modest.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. I think, yeah, I think Holmes is as well, isn't he? He's not in the beginning, he's not, the police just think he's, not, just going to be just in the way, or they don't want that sort of complication of having somebody else.
Yeah, Lestrade doesn't particularly like Sherlock Holmes. Lestrade thinks that Holmes kind of gets in the way quite a lot. Unlike, say, Inspector Japp, who's actually friends with Poirot.
Well, yeah, they really get on, don't they? So that's
But Lestrade considers Holmes a meddler, getting in the way, and you can understand why. Really, just this astonishingly brilliant bloke who kind of keeps kind of pushing his way into your investigations and proving you wrong.
It must be quite annoying. It's like one of those people that when you work with is that they're always right. I guess that's, that was probably the same thing, but he wasn't actually even working with him. He was just sort of there.
Yeah. Consulted by the general public who really in Lestrade's eyes really should be kind of going to the official police.
Yeah. So what was there anywhere particularly that inspired you for Algy's house? Was there anywhere was that sort of a generic place, or was there anything particular that you sort of brought to that?
Actually, Knoll Park in Kent is something of an inspiration. So it's a beautiful, very large manor house. Algy's house, but Algy's house is also a bit of an amalgam of every National Trust property that I've walked around on a Sunday afternoon wishing that I could afford to live there. Although when I used to work as a journalist, and I have been to a number of these houses for work and interviewed the owners for this, that, or the other, and they're actually huge, bit of a millstone around the neck of most of the owners. The ones who from this aristocratic families who are largely penniless now and can't afford to fix their own roofs. And
well, that's generally why they hand them over, isn't it? It's because it's the only way to keep a roof over your head and keep the house from being taken over and turned into a hotel, I guess.
Well, probably, yes, or a school or something. They yes, these things actually running a large country house is actually a full-time job and then some.
I liked the so did you sort of when you started to write the book, did you know where it was going? Did you sort of have a plan? I don't know whether you're a planner or you're a pantser or...
No, I'm very much a pantser. For those who are tuning into these strange terms, some crime writers plan their books, some fly by the seat of their pants. And I'm very much in the second camp that I've tried planning books and I really wish I was better at it. But I find that whenever I tried kind of mapping out where the book is going, I just go off at a tangent within 6 hours and I just wasted 2 weeks of my life. I might as well have just kind of sat down and written a sentence and seen where it takes me, which is basically what I do. I generally have a rough final destination in mind, which very often changes. But I do like to have somewhere I'm vaguely aiming for. I just need to know that I can finish the book, really. I need to know that it will have an ending. Otherwise, I just get too despondent about the whole thing. But I don't have key points along the way. I might have one scene in the middle of the book in mind, but I won't write it until I get to it. I'm very bad at planning.
Because I imagine with a book like this as well, which is although I know your other books are complex as well and intricate, so that sort of that surprises me more, because I just your head must be just full of stuff to be.
Well, there's a lot of kind of writing and then going back and revising. It's basically it is quite a sort of higgledy-piggledy approach to writing that is kind of chaotic and very inefficient. I'm sure if I could, if I planned my books much more, it'd take me half the amount of time to write the damn things. But I just can't work like that. It is so I do just kind of write stuff and then delete 80% of it, and then write other stuff, then delete 70% of that, then write other stuff, delete 60%, and I kind of end up with a book in the end somewhere.
I think so how did you go about writing this one? Did you write it as 2 separate stories. So you wrote
Yeah.
them as completely 2. And then how did you, so how the book set out is, so basically you start off and then you get like a little bit at the end, don't you? So it says like, so on this page I'm reading is if you I think I'm just going to go back to the beginning where the bit where you choose your first bit. I'm just going to find that. So yeah, so to attend the house party at Hurley Court, then you look into the case of the Poynton pen letters, turn to section 11, and then to stay in London and talk to Melissa and find out whether someone's really following her, turn to page 30 or turn to section 38. So then in the book you've got lovely little sort of numbers and a little picture so you can follow through, and then you end up going backwards and forwards and you think, oh, I've nearly finished, and then you end up going back. So how did that sort of, was that you, or was that the editing process that did that, made that part of the book?
I did it. I didn't want to make it kind of linear, so yes, you keep kind of doubling back and going forward, and yeah, so I guess it's kind of a little bit like a maze, a little bit like a labyrinth. So you don't want to make it that you know where you're going.
No.
The joy is that you never really know where you're going. You keep making choices and seeing how they turn out.
Yeah, and sometimes they turn out well, and sometimes they turn out not so well. I was definitely in the not so well camp, but I am going to carry on. I think that's the thing I really liked about it, is that when you normally read a murder mystery, you read it, you maybe read it more than once, but generally once you've read, I mean, I've read Agatha Christie books over and over because I like them and I want to reread them, but this one you want to keep rereading it to find the different ways you're going to go.
Yeah, and there in each of the 2 stories, their mysteries, there is one solution. You're aiming for that one solution. It's not the case that you follow different paths and it might be Mr. X or it might be Mr. Y who did the crime. It's always Mr. X.
Yeah,
it's just a question of whether you get there or not. So at the end, if you manage to get to the final scene, if you're not bumped off before then then you have to finally decide which of the 6 suspects you're going to accuse, and you either get it right and you're successful and celebrated for it, or you get it wrong and it's back to the beginning.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, oh no, it's I felt like, I said to my husband, it was a bit like playing a computer game as well, where you keep dying and then coming back to life, and then you have to go back to the beginning and then start again. But you're not always going in exactly the same way, because if you go in exactly the same way, you're going to fall down the stairs again. So you know that you've got to change direction. But I just found that really clever, and I really enjoyed that part of it.
It was fun to write. It was tricky to write.
I was going to say, what were the challenges of writing it?
And in a way, the challenges of writing the same as the challenge of reading it. It's quite frustrating, to keep going through and knowing that you're coming to a dead end. You're going to have to go back, retrace your steps, and write something completely different, and maybe that'll be a dead end as well. So yeah, that I faced as a writer, I faced the same problems, same frustrations. But it was good fun to write because compared to my other books, which are kind of much more straightforward murder mysteries, some quite gritty, some very kind of literary. With this one, I could have more fun with it because I could have quite kind of exaggerated characters in the way that you do get them in Christie. And it's a more fun book. It's more of an entertainment. It's written so it can be a gift to anyone who enjoys murder mysteries, or whether that's yourself or your aunt. And it is, I think it's more of a sort of enjoyable, fun book. Definitely is more enjoyable fun book than my other books, which I hope are enjoyable to read, but they're not playful. They're not playthings.
No, I think this one, like you said, I think definitely it's great to read anytime, but it's great to have. I think it would make a great Christmas gift because it's fun. It's a bit like the Christmas gift that keeps on giving. It's because you're like, you won't. And actually, I was really shocked when I died the first time because I wasn't really expecting it. It came out of nowhere, and I was just happily going to go either downstairs, which I made the fatal mistake of doing what everybody says, is you say you don't go downstairs to hear what the noise is. Or I could have gone upstairs, and I went downstairs, and that was the end of it. I never came back from the stairs.
No, you never know where it's coming from. You never know.
Even when I read the Melissa story, and I can't remember my ending, but it was in a room. I think I was murdered in a room somewhere. But again, that was really unexpected. It's like you're sort of plodding along quite nicely and thinking, oh, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here, and then gone. It's quite brutal.
One of the challenges is that because there's only one solution in each story, but you don't want you want to plant clues along the way.
Yeah.
But you don't want it to be that it's too obvious. So you don't want a devastating clue halfway through the book, because then from then on there's kind of no point reading the rest of the story. So the clues have to be quite subtle, and but everyone has to kind of get some of the clues at least to the solution, no matter what path you take. Because otherwise, when you get to the accusation scene, you're just choosing at random.
Yeah.
And I had to make it that you have a good reason to accuse the right person. Yeah. So if you have spotted, if you've noticed the clues along the way, you will accuse the right person. If you haven't noticed the clues along the way, you'll just pick someone at random, or because you don't like them, or because you do like them, or for whatever reason. So the one of the really hard things was subtlety of clues, and having different clues in different paths, because otherwise you could choose any path, and as long as you don't die, you're still going to have what you're still going to accuse the right person. But I wanted to make it that choosing different paths will make you more likely to get the right answer.
Yeah, because I think that's the other thing, isn't it? Is that when you have to have it so that you don't get killed the first time and think, oh, I can't be bothered with this. You want to go back. I want to go back again now and read it again, because I'm frustrated that I fell down the stairs and never came back again. But also I think I will take more notice, because I think quite often when you're reading, you don't, or I read quite quickly. But I think you need to take notice in this book, don't you? So it is a novel, but it's also a puzzle and a novel.
Yeah. And if you get to the end, if you make it through to the accusation scene, then and you have noticed the clues, then you've got 1 in 6 chance of getting it right. Still, so it's not a dead loss. But if if you've kept your eyes open along the way, you're much more likely to get the accused right person.
Well, I'm hoping second time lucky with each one, maybe. So
maybe.
Laura's watching, and she said she's enjoying these types of books and glad that they're coming into the sort of after enjoying the fantasy genre many moons ago as a teenager.
Right, yeah.
And she said she thought she died 5 times in one of our, Jonathan Whitelaw, who's one of our members in the group. She died 5 times in his book. So I mean, I'm feeling quite good that I've only died twice, but I mean that was in 2 different stories, so actually it's only once.
Yeah, that's actually a very good strike rate. I think you've done very well.
I mean, I haven't read. Yeah, well, we'll see how many times that gets to the end. Was there a favorite part of the book for you, without sort of, I know it might be quite difficult because of spoilers, but was there a bit that you're sort of particularly proud of, or that you particularly sort of are fond of?
I did mention that one of the 2 stories, the Melissa story, has a magic show in it with an actual, with the disappearing box trick, where the girl gets into the box and poof, she's gone. And I had to discover how that actually how you do it. So I did quite a lot of research and find out how the magicians do it. And like all the best magic tricks, it's both very simple and very effective. That you just think, oh, that's it. That's actually very obvious, but I also would never have guessed it. And I've seen this trick like everybody else, and never realized how it's done. But it's also very simple. There's no clever mechanical, there's no machinery involved, there's no stooges in the audience, there's no haze effect going on, there's no camera trickery. So it's actually very simple, but also very clever. So kind of learning how that was done and incorporating that into the story because that's how the murder is done. That was fun. I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, that's that. What about the research side of the book? Because your books are generally more historically set, aren't they? So
They all are, yeah.
So was that something that you want?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously with the Golden Age, it sort of lends itself to it nicely, but
yeah, I think that the latest any of my books have been set is 1953, 52, 53. Yeah, the in terms of the Golden Age, funnily enough, this book I had to do probably the least research of my life because we all know that period very well from murder mysteries.
Yeah.
From reading them and watching them. It's just one of the kind of periods you've grown up with, and whether you like Agatha Christie or Downton Abbey, you know what the cars look like. You know the manners of the people at the time. So yeah, and it's lots of fun to play with. And one of the fun things about crime story set during that period is that everyone is so stiff upper lip, and so the manners and customs and polite behavior is so formal that you can play with it and undermine it, and it can nicely contrast with stabbing someone in the back of in the library or poisoning them in the billiards room. And it's quite joyful. It's quite fun to play with these kind of tropes and these kind of stock characters. Yeah, I think that's one reason why we enjoy Christie so much. It's not just the writing; it's the period setting. It just makes the whole thing fun.
Well, it's something that none of us have experienced, but we have very much so through, like you say, media, TV, books. It's something that we're all quite comfortable with, like you say, imagining and being in that setting. And probably quite a lot of us, I definitely would have liked to have sort of been able to have been in that sort of era. And
yeah, well, I think we all have quite a romantic view of it. There's also
exactly,
tuberculosis and slums.
It's okay if you're aristocracy, I guess.
Apart from the TB, which I think you're just as likely to get, but maybe not as likely to get.
Yeah.
You're probably more likely to die of scarlet fever then than you are now.
With Melissa's story, I sort of liked the sort of, because she's just out on a limb, isn't she? She's trying to, she's basically, her business is failing and she's going out with a bang, sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
I liked her as a character. I thought she was really fun.
Yeah, she's a giggle, isn't she?
Did you where did she sort of come from? Was she sort of like just somebody that you sort of quite quickly got in your head of what she was?
Well, I made it so that the protagonist or the supposed victim in each of the two stories, one male, one female, to kind of keep a good ratio. And she, and I quite liked having her, having Melissa, this kind of very sort of gung ho character instead of the simpering victim.
Yeah,
and she's very gung ho. She's about to go up the Amazon, paddle up the Amazon, and she's running her husband is running her family's pharmaceuticals company. He's kind of running it into the ground, and she's just kind of had enough of him. And so, as you say, she decided to kind of basically bankrupt it and go.
Yeah.
She's fun, and it's nice to have a really kind of dynamic character. Also, contrasts with Algy, the victim, sort of victim in the other story, who's very nice, but if brains were dynamite, he wouldn't be able to blow his hat off.
Yeah. He reminded me of Tim Nice but Dim in Harry Enfield.
Yes, he is. You quite like having Algy around, but you wouldn't want him planning your financial future.
No.
So it's good to have a contrast between the two stories in setting, in characters, in the type of murder it is, whether it's a family jealousies or if it's to do with money, or if it's to do with sexual jealousy or any of these things. I try to make sure that the two mysteries are very different, so that you read one and then you have a very different sort of story when you read the other one.
Yeah, well, which you do, because I think, like you said, it's I think the the Christmassy sort of the house, this, you know, the period setting, the stately home, you know, is very sort of reminiscent of a Christmassy sort of, whereas Melissa's story is a bit more, it's, I mean, it's still fun. I really enjoyed it, but it's different, isn't it? It's a different sort of...
it's kind of, it's much more, I guess it's kind of urban in some ways.
Yeah.
The characters are more sort of urban. They're a bit younger. They're not all members of the same stately aristocratic family. Some of them are there's what a couple of them are sort of working class. One of whom is a football player. His wife is a secretary. Instead of your standard Poirot aristocratic family in a stately home sort of setup.
I was interested because there was an Arsenal reference in the book, and I was wondering whether it was whether you were an Arsenal fan.
No, football not my thing, not at all.
No.
Never been interested in it, I'm afraid.
You've never been. It was quite interesting having a footballer in the book, and you mentioning Arsenal if you're not into football as well, because I am an Arsenal supporter, so actually I picked up on that. Whereas probably if you were, one of the others, you might not.
I actually wrote it for you. I knew we would be doing this interview sooner or later.
It was, you knew that I was an Arsenal fan.
And you've done very good.
Sort of because you've obviously got, you know, a good following with your other books.
In terms of research, I did have to work out precisely when Woolwich Arsenal became Arsenal.
Did you?
The historical accuracy. I think that's the most research I did for the book.
And when was that? Because I don't know that.
I can't remember, but by the time.
But it was by that time. I think it might been even like in my head. I've got like just the useless information. I think it was quite a lot earlier than that. But
but definitely by this time they were Arsenal rather than.
Sorry. So have your readers of your other books? So have they been? How have the sort of reviews been for? You know, have they sort of been positive about it? Have they been excited by it?
Well, I mean, the Turn Glass is definitely my most popular book, I guess. It was Sunday Times bestseller. It was Guardian Observer Thrill of the Year, Mirror Thrill of the Year, Express Thrill of the Year, Times Thrill of the Month, and that was like a punch in the gut.
Well, a month's better than nothing.
It's better. It is. Couldn't just make it 1 year. And I like talking about that. But that book was what kind of broke me into European markets. So it's in 14 languages or something. I enjoyed writing it, and it's still the book which people kind of really seek out. Funnily enough, the book of mine, which in some ways I'm most proud of, for one which I did a huge amount of research for, the book was called The Winter Agent. And I think it's some of my best writing. But unfortunately it came out, I think, 2 weeks into lockdown, to the first lockdown.
No.
All the shops are closed, nobody was delivering anything. And so people couldn't actually buy it. Got very good reviews, but it's sold. It's one of my best works, and it sold the fewest copies, which is disappointing. But there you go. These are the things that happen. My other recent book, the one which came out a few weeks ago,
Waterfall.
A couple months ago.
Yeah, I've got that one to read. I haven't read it yet. I've got it here next to me.
So that's a sequel to The Turn Glass. I'm quite proud of that one too. So it's a story within a story within a story within a story, which is another, as you say, it's kind of playing with form is something which I really enjoy doing, and structure. So that's 4 different stories, all in different genres. So the first one is a sort of historical mystery about Shakespeare investigating the murder of Christopher Marlowe, which, as you probably know, it's a real life murder mystery. Christopher Marlowe really was murdered. We know who did it, we don't know why. And we also know that he and Shakespeare were friends. They collaborated on at least one play. And so I have it that Shakespeare's investigating his death, his murder. And then that manuscript turns up the stories that Shakespeare's written, a manuscript detailing the murder of Marlowe and solving it. And then that manuscript turns up a couple of hundred years later in my next story up, which is in the English Gothic style, set in an abandoned monastery, which has been turned into a strange clinic for people who can't sleep. And And then that story itself is what was written in the third story in the book, The Waterfall. It is a story written by an English expat in Venice, and so this third story is in the classic golden age style. It's a lot more fun. It's got lots of gags in it, and it's this very formidable lady investigator, Honora Feldman, who doesn't take any nonsense from anyone and hates policemen with beards. And then finally, the top story is in the American noir style, and that's the sequel to the Turnglass, where some of the characters from the Turnglass pop up again, investigating how this book, The Waterfall, is inspiring a series of deaths and murders throughout Los Angeles in 1943. So yes, structurally, it was quite tricky to work out. But I really enjoyed writing in 4 different genres, and having one book with 4 stories in different genres all linked together, one inside the other. Yeah, and so
you
that's
really like to push yourself. You don't want to be just putting something out that's easy.
Well, the funny thing is that I find it easier to write in structures like that. Yeah, rather than also because I prefer writing 4 medium length stories than one very long story.
Yeah,
I find a full length book very daunting to write these days. So I quite like writing 4 30,000 word stories.
And then how the sort of the coming together of it all at the end to sort of have that ending? Is it, do you write them as separate stories and then
try to tie them all together?
Try to tie them, yeah. Well,
I had an idea, obviously, how they would all tie together.
Yeah.
I didn't just, hope that I'd find a way of doing it.
Yeah, please let me find a way to do this after I've written all these words.
Well, yes, I should be sitting in my bedroom for months trying to work it out. But yeah, so that came out a couple months ago, The Waterfall.
I've got it here, actually. Oopsie. I've got the proof. Right. So do I need to read the first one? Do I need to read the Turnglass first?
You don't need to. They are standalone, but they are linked with characters. So you'd probably want to read, if you've read the Turnglass, you would want to read the Waterfall to see how the hero of the Turnglass, the Ken Kurian, turns out. Because this follows on with his adventures, a couple of years later. So if you had read the Turnglass, you'd probably want to read the Waterfall. But you don't have to have read the Turnglass to read the Waterfall.
I just have any excuse to get another book, so that's why I can say, oh, well, I need to read that one now.
Right, great.
Sort of, who's sort of inspired your writing over the years? Because obviously you've mentioned a lot of different characters. You've got Christie and Conan Doyle, and then Shakespeare, and so who would you say is one of your inspirations?
Well, I wish I could write a book like The Name of the Rose, Umberto Eco's astonishing book, because it just kind of works on so many levels as a murder mystery, as a study of character, as a study of religious intolerance and madness, and for any semiologists out there, it's a great work of semiology, of understanding semiotics. I think that's also been an influence on me, partly due to the historical context. That it's quite Gothic. It's set in 14th century or 12th, 13th century Italy, and maybe that's why I quite wanted to write historical novels. Because also, I think you're much freer in historical novels. It's going back to the point that we live in quite a regulated society now, that it's not just the fact that your mobile phone tells you where you are all the time. It's the fact that, unlike Dickens' era or Conan Doyle's era, you don't have urchins running around on the street, begging. They'd be scooped up by social services and put in a children's home. Might not be very nice, but it's not quite the same as starving on the street. And you don't get people. You very rarely get people so desperate that for money that they're living in a hovel and murdering people in the street for a few pennies. I guess it happens, but it's pretty rare. We live in quite regulated society now, so some of the some of the madder impulses that we have are very suppressed by kind of modern society, and even things like some mental illness that you're not, if you're mentally ill nowadays, you're probably going to get help. Not always, but probably, and you're probably not going to end up, stuck in a horrible asylum, which is made from sort of
Yeah.
but that makes for very powerful scenes in the books that I write. So it's kind of frightening. And you can frighten people, I think, with depictions of the past much more than depictions of the present.
Well, that's the thing with especially with, like you said about like children and things, is that there was workhouses and debtors' prisons and all those sorts of horrible places. I know it's not ideal, less than ideal, but it's not, as you say, it's not Dickensian. Some things are a bit, but not to the level of they were.
Yes. So that's why kind of setting things in kind of Victorian era, I think, means you're much freer, because you can have people doing things which they're very unlikely to do nowadays, or get away with things they're very unlikely to get away with now. So that's kind of more enjoyable to write. I think it means that you have fewer restrictions around you, fewer rules you have to follow.
Yeah. A sort of flippant Christmas, because this is my first Christmas crime book club chat, so I'm going to ask you what your favourite Christmas film is.
Oh, Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh, good one. Yeah, that is a good one. I think that's probably mine's a toss up between that one and probably Elf.
Right. I think, but in Muppet Christmas Carol you have Michael Caine playing it absolutely straight.
Scrooge is just the best. Scrooge, and
it only works because he's playing it straight. If he was playing it as a comedy character, it just wouldn't work at all.
No. And Miss Piggy is just she's amazing as well. Yeah. So we were talking about who's inspired you to writing, but do you have any have you read any, have you got any favorite authors' books that you sort of go back to?
Well, Name of the Rose I've probably read more times than any other book. I've read it 4 or 5 times. I've seen the TV series, I've seen the film, I've listened to the audio version. Secret History by Donna Tartt I've also read 3 or 4 times, which is the closest you get to that kind of gothic experience in a modern setting. And she gets away with it because it's set in, I guess, the 80s, before mobile phones, before CCTV everywhere. So there is she's this kind of transition between an unregulated society and a regulated one. And it's a brilliant novel. And again, what's great about it is that it combines thought and beauty, along with the simple mechanics of murder mystery.
I think what I loved about The Secret History is that although it is set in the 80s, it could be set earlier because of the setting, because of that sort of whole the whole dynamic of the group and things, because I think it could be she
deliberately kind of isolates this group of people, and it's in a fairly isolated university in America. That it's kind of generally, it seems a bit of a nowhere place. It's not a city, and it's not in a city anyone's ever been to or has heard of. It just seems to be really kind of dislocated from time and space in many ways. I mean, you could write almost exactly the same book in 1780, set in 1780, or
it's really clever.
And there would be very little difference that you'd have to make, apart from the fact that there are girls at university. So, which you see, I suppose you'd have to write from about 1820 onwards.
I was going to say, and even then there was lots of restrictions, wasn't there, about whether they were actually allowed to. So just before we're coming up to the end, what's next for you?
I am right now engaged in writing the 3rd and final part of the Turnglass trilogy, which is actually a prequel set in 1805. And then I don't know. I'm gonna sit back, have a bit of a break, and decide what to do next. Actually,
would you want to do another sort of Christmas murder?
I might do. Depends if there's kind of demand for it. It was fun to write.
Yeah.
I enjoyed writing it. Although the structural stuff is quite tricky, kind of juggling all these plot lines, trying to remember where all the clues are, trying to remember where everyone is at every one moment.
Yeah.
So you don't have kind of people going through different pathways and saying, "Hang on, Bob the policeman's in two places at once."
Yeah.
That bit was a bit of a mental juggling act. But yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that this one will be a real favourite at Christmas. I think that I imagine it's going to be one of those ones that pops up in lots of people's stockings, like Murdle. I had Murdle last year, and I've never been able to work it out. It was far too clever.
I'm afraid I haven't actually opened
it. It's much more puzzly than this is. Yours is much more novel puzzle, whereas this is just pure puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, Murder at Christmas, You Solve the Crime is very much a story. It's a story in which you're the hero, but it's a story.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So Murder at Christmas is out now, came out last week. And it's I'm going to try and reread it again and make sure that I don't fall down the stairs or get bumped off in my bedroom again. I mean, I could end up dead again, but there we go. Thank you for joining us, Gareth. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.